they understand how you got to that conclusion. You don't have to re-explain it. Okay, and then also, how do we prevent and manage deviation from the change? So in other words, how do we prevent, in this case, how do we prevent naloxone from coming off the order set, being taken off for something else, or for it to not be default checked, or fill in the blank? Okay. So the way we do that, so usually we'll do an implementation plan. So how are we going to implement? We actually map that out. And then we'll come up with a monitoring plan. But probably one of the most, if I were to pick the most valuable tool in this whole toolkit that I've given you, it's the one we're about to talk about, which is FMEA. Has anyone in the room ever done an FMEA? Okay. So it's a failure modes and effects analysis. Here, let me go to the thing here. So it's failure modes and effects analysis. And so there's actually a missing column here. So there should be a total column here. So anyway, the idea is you do an analysis, and you do this before you implement the solution, and you do it after you implement the solution. Okay? Basically, this is the funnest game in the world. What could possibly go wrong? Okay? What could possibly go wrong? Whether it's likely or unlikely, you're going to decide that later. But what could go wrong? All right? So you list the failure. You list that in this column over here. Let me get the mouse going. You list that in the column over here. So what's one potential way that the naloxone being on the order set could go wrong? What was that? Could get administered at the same time. Could get administered inappropriately, right? Okay, so there's a potential failure. What's the probability, the likelihood of that happening? Is it likely, somewhat likely, or very unlikely? Somewhat? Somewhat? Okay. Okay, what about the severity? If we administered both the naloxone and the hydromorphone, what's the severity of that happening? The pain depends on what their pain was, right? If their pain was a 9 and you give them hydromorphone and the naloxone at the same time, it's kind of severe. It's not going to kill them, but it certainly isn't going to, it certainly works against the solution, right? Okay, what about the detection? Would we know? How would we know if they got administered at the same time? What's that? Patient starts complaining about pain. How else? Documentation. Yeah, they're going to chart what they gave, right? So it's pretty detectable. Severity somewhere in the middle. Probability somewhere in the middle. Okay. I'd argue it's probably pretty low. Most people know what naloxone is and what it does and all that. Okay. So a lot of people use scale 0 to 10. I like to use a 159 because it gets rid of the negotiating. Okay. So 1 being that it's not likely at all on the probability, or that it's not severe, or that we're really likely to detect it. Okay. Whereas 5 is kind of that middle road, and 9 is probability is that it's very likely to happen. It's going to be very severe, and we're probably not going to even know if it happens. Make sense? Okay. So we do that rating. So let's say, so on this one we came up with 5, 5, and 1, right? 5, 5, and 1. Okay. So that's 25, if I can still do math with 5s. So our number there is 25. Okay. What could we do to stop it from happening? Educate nursing, okay. Education's usually not a great solution. Like I said, people do what people do, right? Could you use the electronic health record somehow? They were much more awake earlier, Dr. George. You doubt it? I did offer them a field trip to Starbucks, and they lit up actually thinking I was serious. Sorry, guys. So when that shows up on the course evaluation, that's what it was all about, man. Okay, so come with the 25. How could you stop it from happening? You can put a hard stop. We talked about best practice alerts earlier. You could do BPA. You could do something like that. So you can multiply those and have a total amount, and then there's your mitigation monitoring. Okay, so why do the numbers? So what we could do is, ideally, so you came up with how many solutions? We came up with probably about 20 solutions earlier, I'd say. Okay, so if we came up with 20 solutions, there's at least one way that every single one of those solutions can go wrong, right? So what we do is we list each of the ways that things could go wrong. We assign the numbers across here, multiply it out, and then we sort. We sort by what's the highest number. And then we address those top 5, top 10, top 20 things that can go wrong to assure that it doesn't, right? It's the reason we call it a failure modes and effects analysis. And then we come up with the mitigation strategies for those that are likely to happen. Make sense? All right. By the looks on your faces, our time together has come to an end. So what I'd like to do is I've given you this as well. Let's do, we did a recap and a reflection kind of at the beginning. And I'd kind of like y'all to talk in your groups for just a quick minute, and then we'll bring it back out, and then we're done for the day. What did you learn today that was new? And what would you use again? Give me one in each category, and we'll just do a quick round robin, and then we're out of here. Oh. Okay, so let's go through this real fast. So back here, one thing that you learned that was new. 5 whys, good. How about over here? One thing you learned that was new. Failure mode and effects analysis, good. How about up here? Ishikawa? Dome origato, Mr. Roboto. How about up here? Failure modes and effects analysis. Cool. Let's change the question as we go back. What have y'all learned in the last 2 sessions that y'all would probably use again? SciPoc, I like it. What about back here? Something y'all would use again? Process map? Yeah, process maps are good. What do we got back here? 5 whys. If nothing else, just for a fun exercise to figure out why you got a speeding ticket. Great. All right, that's all I have for y'all. Dr. George, you have any last thoughts for them?